All right, let's do this. This is Unfound Live for April 21st, 2025. I hope everybody had a great week. I hope everybody had a nice Easter. If you celebrate such things, it has been beautiful here in Clearwater Beach, Florida, since we all got together last. Very little rain, a lot of sunshine, a little windy for sure, but beautiful. Anybody would take this weather any time of the year, anywhere in the country, unless maybe you're in Hawaii or something. But these are the days, these are the reasons that people live in Florida for these kinds of times of the spring and the fall. Of course, the winter's not so bad. The summer, yeah, that can not be fun sometimes. But good to see all of you. I have a fantastic show planned for you tonight. I come to this microphone a little tired. Has nothing to do, well, maybe has a little bit to do with things that have been going on over the last several months. But actually, my sleep has been pretty good. It's just one of those things where I probably should have taken an afternoon snooze today for at least 20 minutes, and I didn't. And so kind of feeling it a little bit, but I'll be fine. I'll get through this the next 2 hours, and all it means is I'll sleep even better tonight. But so if my eyes look a little tired or whatever, it's probably because I am at least a little tired. So, yeah, as you can see in the title for this live show tonight, I want to talk about a woman that was found in concrete or cement. There is a difference. I got a Dale Kerstetter story for you. Something that I posted in the discussion group on Facebook today. And then also I was alerted by a listener of a woman who they thought was dead and actually was found, had been alive the whole time. So anytime that kind of story pops up, we got to talk about that, of course, as well. As you are watching or just listening this evening or tonight, please hit the thumbs up button, like it, share it, subscribe it. You know what to do. Maybe some of you don't know if you're new. And if you'd like to support what we do here at Unfound, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. You can see it there at the bottom of the screen. PayPal.me/Unfound podcast. Also, you can hit the join button if you're watching on YouTube, right below the screen. Of course, some of your apps on certain phones and tablets will not show the join button. And then also you can hit the super chat button below the chat if you'd like to contribute while the show is happening here tonight on April 21st of 2025. So what is going on with me since we got together last? Trivia Team won again. We won just straight outright this time. If you remember, I guess a week and a half ago, not quite 2 weeks ago, we won through a tiebreaker. Whereas this past week, we won just straight out and won pretty easily. And that always makes me very, very happy. We are on a roll 2 weeks into the season, and we have won the first 2 weeks. So picking up where we left off from last season, which is always nice. And yes, all the other trivia teams hate us. There's like 20 other teams, and 100 some other people, 105, 110 people or something like that. And we still win. It doesn't matter. So that was good. And I'll be going there this Wednesday over there at Finley's, about 20 minutes away, where we've been playing there for over a year now. What else is going on? Made it to the gun range. I've been trying to make that more of part of my weekly schedule. I am a member of I don't know if it's necessarily a gun club, but a shooting range called the Wyoming Antelope Gun Club or whatever. I have no idea why it's called that. We're here in Florida. I don't think there are any antelopes in Florida, but it's called the Wyoming Antelope Gun Range or shooting range or whatever, for whatever reason. And I'm a member there. So, you pay once a year and you can go as much as you want. Of course, you have to pay for your own ammunition and all that. So I got to take advantage of that membership. And I have to admit, the last couple years, I don't think I got my money's worth. So I resolved to go over there once a week. And so I've been doing that. It's quite a few weeks here in a row where I've usually go on Friday mornings. It opens at 9, and I like to be right there right when it opens. That's when it's, I think, least busiest. And you can have a little space, and because I think the gun range can get a little crowded, and then you have somebody right beside you shooting their gun, you're shooting your gun, and then you can even have people on both sides of you. And it gets a little loud, of course, and you have ear protection on and everything, but still. And, I'm not into big crowds and everything anyway. So I like to get there first thing. I'm ready to shoot right when they open at 9 a.m. and kind of get out of there in an hour and a half. And so I was there, but this week I went on Saturday because I was headed over that direction anyway. I wanted to go see my friend Cameron. He was running a disc golf tournament over in Tampa on Saturday. So I figured I'd go to the gun range, which is in that direction. And after that, go over there, hang out for a little bit. I didn't play, just hung out for an hour and a half or something, just seeing what's going on. And then, I left. But think about the gun range. If you're not into guns, fine by me. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm into guns, but I do recognize a person's right to self-defend himself or herself. So, the thing about going to the gun range, yes, you're trying to be accurate. And I'm certainly a better gun shooter than I am a disc golf player. Certainly. No doubt about that. I'm pretty good. If I'm concentrating and everything, and I'm not, because I have to admit, at some point I get a little bored. I'm over there and I'm shooting well, and I start maybe trying to go a little quick, and maybe some of the bullets then start not being so accurate. But it's not so much if you're thinking about if you have a gun and you're thinking about going to the range for the first time, or you're going to the range, you're a gun owner. I think it's really all just about getting comfortable with it. It's, yes, you want to hit what you're aiming at, but really you want to get to a point where, should you unfortunately have to use your gun in self-defense, that you're not fumbling around. It's second nature to you because your life is going to depend on it. And that's what going to the gun range means to me. Getting comfortable with handling the gun, feeling it, good grip, just getting the basics down. So should something happen, that shooting the gun in an efficient, it's like second nature. That's really what it's about. I'm not trying to be a marksman or anything else. That shouldn't be your goal if you're thinking about going to the gun range. It's just about getting comfortable. It's just a tool. It's a tool to defend yourself, and your life's going to depend on it. It's no different than playing an instrument, a guitar, a trumpet, the piano, or whatever else, or using carpentry tools, whether it's a hammer or a drill or anything else. Learning how to use that tool, and you don't have to think about it. And of course, you're never going to know if your training is working well or not until it actually matters. And hopefully, none of us ever have to think about that. But you need to be prepared just in case. So I go to the gun range. To tell you the truth, I'm usually, I'm 54. I'm usually one of the youngest people there at that time. A lot of oldsters show up there early in the morning when I'm there, it seems. And they're shooting their revolvers and other types of guns, like 22 rifles and everything. And then I'm rolling in with my 2 Glocks and my Kel-Tec Sub 2000, 3 guns probably that none of those types of people would probably own or have or shoot. So it's kind of funny. And usually, I have to be honest, I usually am one of the best shooters there when I'm there at that time. Of course, I don't know how good the competition is, but I'm always pleased every time I show up. I think I surprise myself a little bit, and it also shows that I still have my eyesight at 54 without any glasses or anything. So that's what I got out there, did that on Saturday morning, and then went and saw my buddy Cameron, and saw many people, disc golfers that I knew. And what's cool about that course over there in Tampa, it's right in the line of the jets landing and taking off. They were actually taking off on Saturday. So you're right in line with the main runway that they use at the Tampa airport. They have a variety of runways, but I think this is the one they usually use. And the planes are either landing right over you or taking off right over you. And it's a very cool, neat vibe. If you were to look at it on a map, if you were to look at the Howard Franklin Bridge, if you go to the east side of the bridge, it's just north of that. Between the Howard Franklin and the airport, it's that little grassy area right between them. Of course, it's been around for about 10 years. Not one of my favorite courses, but it's okay. It's okay. It's too far away for me to play on a regular basis, driving the whole way over there, all the lights and intersections and the causeway and everything. So I don't play it very often. So maybe that's also why it's not one of my favorite ones. So that went on. Trivia went on. Gun range went on. Dad's doing good. I used to have some arthritis issues. He wanted to go hang out with my brother Michael yesterday for Easter, but he was like, nah, I'm feeling too sore and everything. So he didn't go, and he was a little down about that. But otherwise, he's doing good. Of course, he is 88, so you are going to have, arthritis at that age. I don't think there's anything that anybody can do about that. It's better having it at that age than having it in your 50s or something. So he's doing good. Talked to him yesterday. Didn't talk to him today. I don't know if he went up. He usually goes up to the clubhouse he has in his little community there and plays cards on Monday evenings. They play 500, if any of you are familiar with that. And I think my dad's a decent card player. So I don't know if he went up and did that tonight or not, but he likes to go up there, and it's mostly women who are there because all their husbands are dead. So he's like one of the few guys that's still around in that community, and it's like him, and then there's like 7 or 8 women. He's, so he delights in that. And as far as my sleep is going, it's been good. I had one less than great night. I would say that would have been Wednesday night this past week. Otherwise, been pretty good. I would say the rest of the nights I have averaged around over 7 hours of sleep, and I think it's been good sleep. Have not did not take an afternoon snooze all week, although I kind of felt like taking one today for whatever reason and didn't, much to my demise maybe. So it's been good. But this is going to continue to be a process. I don't think I'm anywhere near it. Just building, the one thing about sleep deprivation, when you go without sleep deprivation, you have sleep deprivation for like 3 months, like I had, it takes a long time for your body to recover. It's not like, well, you just get about like 10 hours of sleep every night over a week and it's done. That's not how the body works. So I'm still getting through that, but I cannot complain. I mean, what's been going on the last couple of weeks of my sleep is a huge step in the right direction. Having a lot of positive thoughts about that, and it's allowing me to get quite a few things done. So that's about it. What's been going on for Easter yesterday? Did nothing. I went out through the discs a little bit, practiced a little bit up here at the park, and I made myself a sandwich and everything, and that was really about it yesterday. And did watch some Ben-Hur last night. I love me some Hollywood epic movies. And it's not because they're religious movies necessarily, but the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, they just coincidentally both have Charlton Heston in them. They are fantastic. They are really, really fantastic movies. I love the spectacle. I love how long they are. The grandeur of them. They just don't do that. I realize they make long movies and things like that now, and the Marvel movies and everything. But being that there's no CGI and they have to get 1,000 extras and everything else for these movies, just fantastic. And and all the sets and things that they have to build and everything, it's just so good, just so good. So let's see who is in here tonight. Nephew Charlie gets in an hour early. Boy, Charlie, you were really sucking up to your uncle on that one. Hello, 38. Joanne, my favorite part of Mondays, Ed Lodge. Yeah, trying to make Monday a fun day, Joanne. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you, Sarah. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, Charles, Lisa, is it Monday again? It is Monday. Amy, Stephanie, Nikki, Haley, happy Monday to you. Hello, Michelle. Hello. Hi to you as I. Haley says, it sounds like you were right about the vet. I'm going to get to the Las Vegas veterinarian here in a bit, Haley. Yeah, unfortunately. And thank you for that. Tanya. Thank you, Haley. Amy. Yeah, no surprise. Neighborly, what's going on? Amy, regarding the veterinarian, I was very disturbed watching the horse being harmed. Yeah. We talked about that Thursday night with Dr. T. How many of you watched that show? You should have. And if you didn't, please track it down and watch it. I'll watch all of it. And like the last 10 minutes, we talk about that story. Hello, Marty. Good to see you. Thanks for getting in 15 minutes late. Been a few weeks. Yes, it has been a few weeks. Good to see you. CRG, what's going on? D, good to see you. How are you doing, D? Charlton Heston, classic actor. True. Rennie from Dallas. The big D, Rennie, huh? Fishing, what's going on? Yep. All right. I was there. Great day. Yeah, Sarah, thank you. Ferry. And Amy says she did watch the Dr. T show. All right. So let's get to the topics for tonight. And if any of you have any questions, if you'd like to spruce up this show even more tonight, if you have any questions, comments, or mainly questions if you'd like me to answer, does not have to be true crime related. As long as it's PG rated and it's not too personal, I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. Whether it has to do with me or anything else, of course, no politics or religion, please. So if anything is on your mind tonight, I am the person to ask. Let's go right to it, since a couple people have already brought it up, and that is Dr. Frainer, the Las Vegas veterinarian who was seen on video, caught on video, maybe I should say, kicking a horse. And I have to admit, the first time I saw that video was when I did Dr. Telesco's show on Thursday night. I have a very, very low tolerance for stuff like that. I think most people do. Animals being harmed. We have a much higher tolerance when it comes to humans, at least adults, I think. If we're watching on YouTube or something, maybe not in person, but given that I knew what it was about, I was like, I don't need to watch it. All right. All I need to know is the story and what's on the video, and I can analyze it from that. I don't need to see it. But Dr. Telesco chose to play it on her show. Fine by me. But that was the first time I saw it, and yeah, I just can only shake my head. Can only shake my head regarding that. But the result was something that I predicted. I'm not saying that this was a hard one to figure out. I think anybody who could be objective about it, would see the writing on the wall with his car being out there at Lake Mead in the recreational area. And it said that his body was found near Boulder Island. Does that mean he was actually in Lake Mead? I don't know. I've been out to Lake Mead. I was out to Lake Mead several times when I lived in Las Vegas, but I wouldn't say that I know every name of every island or a little shore or anything like that. Boulder Island, not sure where that is, and I didn't look at a map or anything. Maybe I'll do that, and just for my own knowledge. Why did it take them this long to find him? I don't know. Was he found by accident? Was there search? I don't think the story said, but maybe there were people still looking for him out there. But I have to believe this was a situation where, as I stated when last week during the live show, and then on Dr. Telesco's show on Thursday night, that guy ruined his life in like 2 seconds. And it just reminds us that we always, of course, if it's not caught on video, I guess maybe gets away with it. And even if somebody witnessed it but didn't video it, and then it maybe becomes a he said, she said, he said type of situation that he might be able to survive that. But it's caught on video. And as I stated last week, I was wondering why the video was even being taken in the first place. Had something been going on that led up to that? Probably. And that guy ruined his life in a couple seconds. And he knew it. And if he's a 25-year-old, can veterinarians be 25 years old? I don't know what it takes, all the education and all that stuff. Let's say he's 30 years old. If he's 30 and that happens, maybe it's a little different. All right. Okay. I'm going to, get in trouble for this. There's probably going to be a fine or community service or something. It's not like he killed the horse. The horse is going to be fine. But he's going to lose his license. He's going to get in trouble. He's not going to be able to be a veterinarian anymore. At least in Nevada, I suppose he could go somewhere else and try to fake it, and hope that nobody finds out or something. But I don't know. That was like national news, so it's going to be a little difficult. A 30-year-old might be able to recover from that. Okay. Yep. Maybe I don't have the temperament for this job. I'm prone to anger if animals don't do what I want and everything. Maybe I got to go back to school. Maybe I got to be an accountant or something. But being this guy was in his 50s, that's, I think, a different situation that you just can't turn around. I don't know what his financial situation was or anything, but it's hard to switch it up and have your life change like that in a couple seconds in your 50s, 20s, and early 30s. You can much better adapt. In your 50s, it's a whole heck of a lot different, especially when you have to do it because your reputation has been ruined and you're the one who did it all on your own with no coercion. You weren't tricked or anything. You weren't, extorted. You weren't, lured or entrapped or anything. You did this all on your own. Bad. And he was getting the death threats and everything. And now, do I think that every veterinarian who would be caught doing something like this would harm himself or herself? Probably not. In their 50s, but no. I don't think I don't think there's an automatic either way. Probably depends on the person, but I do know that this would be something that's a lot harder for a 50-some-year-old to withstand than like a 30-year-old. And he tried to explain himself, and it didn't help that what his explanation was and apology and everything, my opinion, didn't line up with what is seen in the video. Now, I've only seen the video once, and there may be a longer version of it, more lead up to that happening. Maybe. I've not seen that. Like I said, I only saw those seconds that Dr. Telesco played. But having read what he said, what the Dr. Frainer typed out, after this all came out, and then looking at the video, I don't think they're the same thing. And that doesn't help matters either. If you get caught doing something like that, just say, you know what? I shouldn't have done it. I lost my mind. I'm going to pay all the penalties. I know my reputation has been ruined. Maybe at this point in my life, after being a veterinarian for all these years, maybe I don't have the temperament and the patience and everything anymore. Maybe it's time to, find something else to do, even though I know that's going to be very difficult for me and everything. But you don't try to type it out and explain why you did that, and then people can see the video and say, I don't think this guy's not telling the truth. Very sad. Very sad. I know there are people out there who really, threatened him and everything. I'm not one of those people. I think that him losing his job and everything would be plenty. I didn't want him to go out to the Lake Mead area and harm himself or anything else. There are people that maybe are happy that he did that. I'm not one of them. Even though I'm an animal lover, even though I don't have any patience for taking care of them. But even just today, I pulled up beside a car at a stoplight, and the dog, with the window was down, the dog was looking out there. I stopped beside that car, put my window down, and started talking to the dog in traffic. That's what I do. That's the kind of person I am. And the woman driving the car, the dog's owner, she was just like, what's this guy doing? And then I said hi to the driver. Always talk to the dogs first, by the way. So, very, very sad. I feel bad for this veterinarian's family. He has kids and everything else, but can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. Totally avoidable. But it should teach all of us a lesson about character. That you never know when the video's playing or somebody's recording stuff. You don't know when you're being watched and all that stuff. It's always best to be on your best behavior. Or you could end up like this veterinarian. All right, so that's that story. And that just, what was that, yesterday that came out, or maybe even today? Let's see here what everybody's saying here. CRG says, I got a question. Hello, Lisa. CRG, can you possibly cover an unsolved serial killer case from Massachusetts? You know, that's really not what I do, CRG, but I'm willing to. What do you got? You know, that's not what I do. If it's a serial killer disappearance person, you know, if you believe that there's one person causing multiple people, women, men, whoever, to disappear, then that's more my alley. But if it's actually a killer where bodies are left behind, that's not really what I do. I talk about them on this live show. And as you know, recently I had an episode where I just I talked about the Zodiac Killer just to kind of give an idea to people what goes on in this live show. But I really don't do murders. Just so you know. And I really don't have time for them behind the scenes, except to talk about them on this live show. Tom Head, I've been wondering for a while, do you still have the Stephen Kocher case file? And if so, would you be willing to share it again? It seems to have vanished from the internet. Well, I certainly have my notes, Tom. But you have to remember, I've never spoken to anybody in his family. My coverage of Stephen Kocher's disappearance was all from my point of view because I lived there in Las Vegas when this happened. I lived just a few miles from where he was last seen on what was called Evening Lakes Road or whatever street. Or I lived not too far from there. Late 2009 into 2010, I still lived in Las Vegas. And, I went up and down that street, walked it and drove it. But everything that I talked about in that episode is really just from my experience. And then when they did one of the searches was really, 2 miles from where I lived at the time. And I took part in that in April of 2010. If I've posted anything regarding a file or something, it shouldn't be missing. Any files or PDF stuff that I have that I think people need to see, I post in the discussion group on Facebook, and I don't think anything's been deleted from there because I'm the only person that can delete it. So I'm not sure what you mean about the case file because, although I have my own notes and everything, it's not like the notes I have for all the other disappearances. Hello, Dee Dee. What's going on? Marty, he felt he was too old to start over. Right? Yeah, the veterinarian. At that age, your reputation and character, all you really have. Yeah. I mean, you work all those years as a respected member of the community as a veterinarian, and then that happens. Yeah. Right. Stephanie, police department near me made a missing persons post tonight with only one cropped photo from the neck up and no other physical info like height. Is the sparse info the norm for a new case? Hard to say, Stephanie. I wouldn't say it's the norm, but I would probably say it happens too much. I've talked about this before in that it's not funny. It's darkly humorous, but sometimes I read missing persons news reports and I'm like, could they possibly put any less information in this news, in this report? I mean, they get like the name. I mean, sometimes, many days I will post information about recent disappearances in the discussion group on Facebook and on the Unfound page on Facebook. And because I do daily missing persons reading, I'm always looking at the news. And it is amazing sometimes how hard it is to even find out the town. They'll just say the county. It's Armstrong County. It's Westmoreland County. It's Pinellas County. It's Hills. Well, counties are huge. Most counties are huge. That's not very descriptive. That's not very helpful. We want a town at least, or we want cross streets. Where was this person last seen? What are the cross streets? At least give us the block or something. Most reports don't do that. So when you ask me about one cropped photo, neck up, no other physical info and everything, that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know if eye color is necessarily relevant, but maybe what the person was wearing. But I still think the most important part is a picture of the person and the location where he or she was last seen and what that person was supposed to be doing. Was the person going somewhere? Was the person coming back from somewhere? Was the person driving? Where was the person headed? What direction were they walking on that street? And most of the time, that stuff not put. Why? I don't know. I don't know. All it takes is a few additional words. No, I'm not asking for the last witnesses, although I wish they'd put that too. But even when they get to the locations, it's just so nebulous. And what I think we've learned is most of the time, people have a pretty good handle. The guests themselves on Unfound have a pretty good handle on where their loved one was last seen and where they were, the direction they were going and things like that. Pretty good handle on it. But these news reports, they are lacking. That's a little disappointing what you're saying there, Stephanie. That does seem to me to be on the really, really unique side, but I can't say I'm surprised. CRG on the Zodiac, I believe it's one man and he's passed away and his name is Lawrence Kane. Name is not familiar to me, CRG. The Zodiac Killer, I mean, I talked about it just a couple weeks ago for a while in an episode, but my insight into it is that, you can go, this is just an example. You can go to the Wikipedia page for the Zodiac Killer. There are many different men who are listed as possibilities. Every one of them has been checked out one way or the other, whether through San Francisco police or Vallejo or whatever else. And of course, some of them, they're deceased and it's like their kids are coming forward. Hey, I think my dad was the Zodiac Killer. And of course, these police departments, they want to solve it. This isn't like some disappearance. I mean, the guy killed at least 5 people. This is something even 50 years later they would like to solve. I think if it was any of those guys, and I don't know if Lawrence Kane is listed there or not, but if it was any of those guys, they would have solved it by now. Pretty sure. I still believe, now, of course, my insight is unique. I actually believe that the Zodiac Killer is not an American citizen. I've convinced myself of that. Either that or it's an American citizen who had a lot of time overseas. And I get into that. Go back and listen to that episode for a couple weeks ago. I'm not getting into it now. But I think this is going to, if it is solved, and I think the Zodiac Killer certainly have a lot of time to do that. Maybe eternity. But if I'm here for 30 more years, I would not be surprised if, it's solved. But I think this is going to be a situation like the original Night Stalker, the D'Angelo guy, where he was not on anybody's radar at all. They looked at all these different guys and they never looked at D'Angelo. D'Angelo, of course, finally DNA science finally caught up to him. This is where I have to be critical. I mean, all these people take credit for catching the Zodiac Killer, these investigators. It's science that caught the original Night Stalker. It wasn't putting pieces of a puzzle together that other people had missed or anything. It was just science. We just had to wait long enough for the science to catch up to the crime. That's all it was. This wasn't Columbo work. So it's a little weird. We never forgot about him. We really worked this case. No, you kind of just waited until DNA science got to the point where you could match it up to the DNA that was left by D'Angelo. And the reason he did that is because he didn't know that DNA would become a thing that would be able to identify him all these years later. I'm just not that impressed. I'm hard to impress, granted, but I think it's like that, CRG, that all these people, Arthur Leal, all these people, they've been checked out. It's gone nowhere. So I think that the Zodiac killer is still somebody, a guy, who's not on anybody's radar, just like the original Night Stalker guy wasn't. Pretty sure. Stephanie, yes, that's how it was named. City time, and that was it for info. The photo was blurry and cropped in a way that you couldn't tell the person was short, tall, thin, heavy. Well, it's hard, it all depends where you get the picture from, Stephanie. And I would think that a family would be, if they have pictures of the person, would provide a better one than that. Now, it very well may be that that's a picture from like a security camera or something, and they do use those, and I can't necessarily blame them. But if that doesn't sound like a photo that a family would provide. Mama Love. All right, Mama Love. I was wondering if you tried getting in touch with the family of woman Kimberly Tobaz from Warren, Ohio, went missing in 2015. Again, just wondering. Does not ring a bell, Mama. And I'm pretty good about that. I do keep a list of disappearances where I've reached out to people. I keep a list like that, and the people who get back to me and the people who don't. That is not one that rings a bell. That's Tobaz, fairly unique last name. I think I would remember that. Maybe if I knew the circumstance, I might know the disappearance that way from the circumstance or something if they're unique enough. But I don't recognize the name, so I think the answer is no. All right, so let's move on to maybe just some things that I want to get out of the way real quickly. The Richard Hitchcock poll. In the discussion group, overwhelmingly 90-some% of you people who voted in it decided that Richard did not go into the water, meaning probably didn't go over the fences either. 91% of you decided that. Now, in the think tank, which is held on Patreon, or actually on a private link here on YouTube, but you get it through Patreon, being a member, patreon.com/unfound podcast. If you'd like to join a very exclusive club, it's kind of like when you go to the club and there's all the people, where they're hanging out and there's dance, but then there's like the room, the really exclusive room at the back of the club that only certain people can get into. And then there's even a room back behind that one where like the think tank is like the room behind the room. That's how exclusive it is. But you can get in for a lot cheaper than it would take to get into one of those clubs. But in the discussion, or in the think tank last night, a little bit split. We had, like I said, it's very exclusive. 7 or 8 people in there last night. I think 5 or 6 of them thought that Richard went into the water. But then there were a couple people that actually believe the story. And don't all of you throw rotten vegetables at me or anything. But I'm kind of inclined to believe their story too. I know that's bizarre and everything, but you can read my blog at patreon.com/unfound podcast if you'd like to see my reasoning. I go through a lot of different things regarding barbed wire and searches in water and everything else. But I just think of it this way. Why would those guys tell that story if it weren't true? Why would they? Remember, they didn't come forward for a few days, which I think is explainable and not suspicious. If they did this, they had 2 or 3, 4 days to come up with something, and that's what they came up with. Obviously, the story, 91% of the poll respondents in the discussion group don't believe that story. So why would they come up with a story that trying to convince people that a guy went over a barbed wire fence or something if they're looking to get away with a crime? It's just crazy enough for me that it's true. Now, I could believe that they were chasing him and that's why he did it. But I have to admit, I really don't think that there was foul play. I think he did. I think that he ticked those guys off, but he got away. And I think the way he chose to get away from them, it was a combination of, all right, I'm either going to get my butt kicked or I can try to climb over this barbed wire fence and hope they don't follow me. Which one would you pick? I think I'd pick the barbed wire fence too. And just, if I'm going to get scraped up, get away. And I think in the process of him going over the second fence, which was right up against the river, it's dark. And he's probably had a few in him. We know how drunk people end up in water. Drunk people can't swim. So that's my reasoning. You want to read the whole thing, all 3,000 words, patreon.com/unfound podcast. Yeah, that's okay. All right, Mama. So, if you know anybody in Kimberly's family, Mama, you can have them contact me. CRG, I'm wondering if you have covered the Circleville, Ohio letters case. Not familiar with it. Marty, I'm obsessed. I missed the think tank last night. Yeah, I'm upset too, Marty. Yeah, I only do missing persons cases, as Dee is pointing out. And Sarah says, you missed a good one, Marty. Yeah, rub it in. Good, Sarah. Good job. Let's rub it in on Marty. Marty needs to learn. You got to show up for the think tank. I'm on your side, Sarah, on that one. All right, moving on. So Richard Hitchcock was waiting a long time to cover his disappearance. I've known about his disappearance for 15 years. And it, for at least from my mind, it kind of revealed a lot of things I kind of suspected with his disappearance already. And knowing about Richard's disappearance, just in general, just like the rest of you over the years, I was like, well, if somebody saw him climb over a fence and go into the river, then why is he missing? Well, now we know. And that's why I would say that when it comes to descriptions of disappearances, all of these could be more, technical, a little more precise. Moving on, biggest coincidence you ever want to hear occurred yesterday evening. And I can't really get into the discussion that we had because I'm not saying it was off the record or anything, but it was just a casual conversation. Of course, I live here in this condo building. You're not going to believe this coincidence. I couldn't believe it. So I live here, as all of you know, I live in this condo building here in Clearwater Beach. I live on the 8th floor. I've lived here at the end of this month, it'll be 6 years. And there is a couple from Michigan who the last 3 years, 4 years have come down here from the winter and stayed in the condo right next to mine. So mine is 8B. They're in 8C. So the wall that I'm looking at right here, they're on the other side of the wall. And I think, although I really don't bring it up, but I think that they knew that I do a podcast and I cover missing persons cases. But really we don't talk about that. We talk about a lot of other stuff. But I've gotten to know them, being that they've been down here like 3 or 4 years in a row. They show up and we'll stand out on the balcony and talk. And actually, we went to trivia at this other place together one night, although we weren't on the same teams. So I've gotten to know them. Really nice people, like them a lot. So last night after the think tank, I went out over there just to catch a view. And the woman was out there. And I'm not going to say her name. And I said, yeah, I got done with my show. And I just in passing, I said, coincidentally, my podcast featured a disappearance from Michigan, where you're from Allegan, Michigan. His name was Richard Hitchcock in 1990. And the woman said to me, you're not going to believe this. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, well, do you know about Paige Rinkowski? She said something to that effect when I said that. And I was like, yeah, I know her disappearance. That's another Michigan disappearance. This woman tells me Paige was one of my best friends in high school. Could not believe it. What a coincidence. I could not believe it. And you know, I just, wow. And we started talking about it. Like I said, I don't want to get into what we discussed. But, you know, she, you know, for a little while there, she got a little broken up. It was real. This was not, surely not somebody who was just creating a story to, you know, have conversation. And of course, we know there are people out there in the world who, you know, claim to be close to a disappearance just because they want to sound like an expert on it or get attention and everything. This was not what this woman was doing. This was 100%, absolutely 100% genuine. She knew Paige Rinkowski very, very well. They went to high school together and, as she said, best friends. And I said, well, you know, I covered her disappearance. I know her disappearance really well. So we talked about it. She talked about, you know, what she could remember from back then and not really being sure about what could have happened. But I will tell you this. Of course, I did talk about Paige Rinkowski recently because there was this news that this guy who had murdered a woman in a car up there is now, was, you know, mentioned, and Paige gets mentioned. Could this guy have killed Paige too? And this woman is, you know, I think leaning in that direction. And, you know, she's happy that Paige hasn't been forgotten, that the police, when they do get leads, it seems like they're doing something about them. And she's certainly hoping that this guy did, you know, of course, she's not hoping that Paige is dead. You know what I mean? But if we're to believe that she's not dead or she's not alive anymore, that this guy did it, and then this can all be resolved and you know, Paige's remains can be found and everything. And this woman, her best friend from back then, is certainly leaning in that direction. You know, hoping that this is going to get resolved that way. Now, you know me, when the story came out, I think I was very honest with all of you. It just doesn't seem to me to be a connection, even though some people might see it that way. I don't. I didn't tell that to her. I'm not here to bring her down or anything. That's not, well, I think you're right. It's not what I do. I was like, oh, I'm just listening. All at that point, I'm just listening, trying to get an idea. You knew Paige Rinkowski. I'm all ears. And, but it does really seem that people around Paige really had no answer at the time. Zero. And if you remember, I did interview for that episode. What was it? One of Paige's sisters and a cousin or a niece a couple years ago when we featured her. So that I just could not believe it. I was like, what? And she knew Paige really, really well. So, and you know, being that she got broken up a little bit about it, bring kind of all those memories rushing back and everything, I had to apologize to her. I'm sorry, you know, didn't mean to. You mean she brought up Paige, but then I'm asking questions and listening and everything, and all this stuff comes rushing back, and then I feel guilty about it. But I did apologize to her, but I can't help myself. This is what this is what I do. So she thinks that the recent news is going in the right direction, but I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. I don't want to get into this woman's name or anything else. So we had maybe a 10-minute conversation about it. I just could not believe it. It's a small. Amy says, "Wow." Sarah, it's a small world. Wow, very small world. Amy says the universe brought you together. I guess. And I did tell her you can find the episode on YouTube if you want to hear me interview her sister. Like I said, I think it was Paige's niece on there, or cousin. There were actually 2 guests for that episode. So I don't know if she's going to check it out or not. But there you go. That's crazy. Yeah, Carol says, wow. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Just, yep. So Paige Rinkowski, but I did tell her, this woman, I told her, you have to understand, very rare type of disappearance. Now, I can think of another one. There was a woman in California back in the 70s who her car broke down and she called for help and she went missing from her car on some freeway in LA. But other than that, I mean, this type of disappearance, very, very rare, especially considering that Paige's car was in running condition. I mean, if it was broke down, if the engine had blown up or the transmission was gone or something, then some bad guy pulling up and offering to give her a ride, I think we can all visualize that. Okay, bad luck, horrible, 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 but that kind of computes that her car was in perfect running condition and everything. And on top of the fact, she spent enough time standing outside the car talking to guys, how many were there were, it's unclear, for all these people to see them. It is rare. It's like Dale Kerstetter's disappearance. I'm going to get to his before we're done as well. Carol, I'm going to revisit Paige's episode. I don't remember that one. That's the one where she just dropped her mother off at the airport. She was driving to her fiance or boyfriend's softball game. And for some reason, she pulled over to the side of the road and she was seen talking to these guys and was in a Mitsubishi type of SUV or something. And, everybody saw her standing there, but the weird thing is nobody saw her get into that van, whether by voluntarily or forced. Don't know. So you can check that out, Carol. Please do. Marty, disappearing from a freeway in LA, shocking. No one saw anything with all that traffic. Something was seen, Marty. I think that there was a report that her car was broken down, and there was a report that an older Corvette with like a discolored panel, like one of the sheet metal fenders didn't match the rest of the car, was pulled up behind her. I forget the disappearance. You do that, Google, you'll find what it is. Would love to feature that one of these days. But that's one that comes to mind. So Paige Rinkowski. I think it's still very solvable. And like I said a couple weeks ago, even though I'm doubtful, if you're going to look into this guy, find out what kind of vehicles he had back then. Aussie Land, Sandra Louise, coming to us from the land down under. You come from a land down under. Good to see you. Yeah, you got to check it out, Marty. Moving on, Dr. T's show, another successful one, talking about the murder of Austin Pivo. Please, if you've not watched it yet, please go to her channel, the Fischler College of Education, the School of Criminal Justice channel. And we got it done last Thursday evening. Always have a great time with her. And unfortunately, of course, we will not be getting together again until the fall. Although I will be communicating after we were done. I kind of threw a couple different ideas. Some things that are going on here in the background at Unfound that she might be interested in talking about next semester. Love Dr. Telesco. What else? Here's one of the, let's talk about the Dale Kerstetter story. And because of this, you'll be hearing this guest on Unfound again very soon. But all of you hopefully remember Dale Kerstetter. He was the security guard who went missing from a glass plant in Bradford, Pennsylvania back in the 80s. Somebody went in there and stole some of the platinum, and then Dale went missing as well. I've put forward the theory that Dale got duped, that I think he actually was taking part in this and then got double-crossed. Well, of all places, if you can believe it, you never know where this stuff's going to come up. There is a very, very in-depth article about Dale Kerstetter's disappearance in Popular Mechanics this month. Now, I realize magazines in paper form don't really exist anymore, but, and I think it is behind a paywall, but fortunately, Heather Grotman, you remember her, she was the guest for the Dale Kerstetter episode. In fact, I think that was her first appearance on Unfound. And then she also joined us for Nylene Marshall. She got together with us for Jeannie Bryant. She got together with us for Trevelyan Evans. And Heather runs the lostandfoundblogs.com site. Well, she was the one who put this all together with Popular Mechanics. And she is actually mentioned in the article. And she sent me the article, and it is now in the discussion group on Facebook. Fairly long article. The pages, I think, are in PDF form. So you can download them and read them on your computer or on your phone. Sorry, Popular Mechanics. I realize it's behind a paywall, but the good news is they're not shareable from Facebook. But if you want to read, I will admit there were a couple things that I read in the article that I did not remember about his disappearance, maybe because I just didn't know them. It's been a while since that episode came out. But I think that you're going to find it very, very interesting. It goes over how platinum thefts in the United States in the 1970s, 80s were not rare. And it does seem to me, it even says so in the article, that the police really did think that Dale was a part of this somehow. So Dale Kerstetter, story of Popular Mechanics, thanks to friend of Unfound, Heather Grotman. So if you're not part of the discussion group, this is a good reason to join now. If you would like to read the very, very in-depth article about Dale's disappearance. And on top of that, Heather, because of this, Heather will be joining us on not this Friday, but I think next Friday. She's already picked out the disappearance that she wants to talk about, and it's a good one. I knew about it, and I now that she's has said that we're going to talk about it, I'm very, very excited. So we've picked that out, and so probably interview her this coming weekend, and you will hear my interview with her not this Friday, but next Friday. So I think that's May 2nd or May 3rd, something like that. And she was due. I mean, I like to have her on once a year, and she was on Unfound, I think, March of last year. So we're more than due. And so this is all kind of nice timing. That the article's coming out in Popular Mechanics. We can talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the disappearance that she wants to feature. And as usual, it's one that she has written about on her blog. Of course, she does a podcast too. Maybe you want to check that out. Lostandfoundblogs.com. This is one of the disappearances that she's featured. And as soon as she said, I kind of recognized the name. Then I went to Charlie Project Rent. I was like, oh, yeah, I know this one. This is a good one. Very interesting. All sorts of different ways we can interpret it. So you can, that's not this Friday, it's next Friday. I'm going to tell you about this Friday's disappearance, of course, before we are done tonight. Some other things, we should remember that just a couple years ago, or a couple days ago, it was 9 years since Missy Beavers was murdered in Midlothian, Texas, at that church. I just spoke about it a few weeks ago on a regular episode, the top 5 most popular crimes or incidents that have been featured on this live show. And Missy Beavers was one of those. I went into my own analysis and everything, so I'm not going to get into it now. But 9 years. I think it was April 18th of 2016, somewhere around there. And as I keep saying, this is one of those murders cases you think this is going to get solved in no time. Nope. Not so. Hard to believe. Time has flown by. All right, let's get into Woman in Concrete. This comes to us from Thurston County in the state of Washington in the United States. A missing 82-year-old woman from Tenino, Tenino, has been found dead, partially encased in concrete underneath a shed in Olympia. Detectives with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office say they found Marcia Norman's body on April 9th, only 5 days after she was reported missing. Detectives recently named her handyman, Jeffrey Ziz. Can you believe that? Ziz. Z-I-Z-Z is his last name. I wonder if that's his real last name. That's so weird. As a person of interest, they believed he was the last person to see her alive. He told us, the police talking now, he told us they had dinner together. He's not the average handyman to this family, Lieutenant Mike Brooks told Cairo 7 channel there. He's a good family friend, so it doesn't necessarily seem like having together would be uncommon. Detectives claim that Ziz built a shed at a piece of property in Olympia the day after Norman was reported missing. On April 9th, detectives obtained power equipment to move the shed and excavate the ground beneath it. Detectives discovered human remains buried under the shed and partially encased in concrete. On April 10th, the Thurston County Coroner's Office confirmed the remains belonged to Norman. Oh, it's called, Ferry's already connecting me. Tenino. Really? Tenino, that's how you pronounce that, Ferry? Really? Tenino. All right, thank you. Sometimes I just butcher these names. Thank you for that, Washington, the state of Washington. Thank you, Ferry. Detectives discovered human remains buried under the shed and partially encased in concrete. On April 10th, the Thurston County Coroner's Office confirmed the remains belonged to Norman. Detectives say that while they were looking into Ziz, he ran away to Missoula, Montana. I had a roommate from Missoula, Montana in Las Vegas. This violated his sentencing for an unrelated sex offense. Imagine that. And he was arrested. On April 13th, detectives extradited Ziz to Washington. He is now in the Thurston County Jail on a no-bail hold for his child molestation probation violation warrant, while detectives finish gathering evidence to determine what to do next. Court documents show Ziz's previous case had to do with child molestation and inappropriate electronic communication with a minor. Thurston County prosecutors say Ziz served 11 months behind bars as part of that case and was currently serving a 93-month probationary period. Because of this violation, they plan to ask a judge to revoke the probation and send Ziz back behind bars for 93 months over 7 years. Yeah, well, if he murdered her, he's going to get a lot longer than that. Let's hope. As the investigation into Norman's death continues, loved ones are holding tight to the positive memories they share with her. She loved to smile, said Norman's niece, Tracy Kistenmacher. Everybody loved Marcy. Kistenmacher said her aunt gave the best hugs and always was doing wonderful, thoughtful things to look out for those she loved. She would hug you and she would tell you everything was going to be okay, she says. Let's see what Marty, going back to Dale Kerstetter, I always thought he had to have been an inside man. I agree with you. Ferry says, I live in Olympia. Ferry correcting me. 1090. All right. Mama says, I heard about that. So crazy woman buried in concrete. What state? Washington. Ferry says, I worked at an elementary school there. Then, well, I guess then you would know how to pronounce the town then, Ferry. Thank you. Sandra says, I heard about this case. It was a railroad stop case. What a crazy lunatic. Yes. Now, Of course, it is a little bit of a bizarre story, and that's certainly why it made it into the live show tonight. But I also want you to think about this. Think about how quickly this was resolved. Despite this guy burying her in concrete under a shed. Like, I guess he just, I don't, it's hard for me. Was he planning to build this shed? Did he build it because he killed her? It's hard to say. I don't know. But I want you to keep in mind how quickly this got solved because, we hear a lot. In fact, just this past Friday, we heard about Richard Hitchcock, and we heard that there was a story that he got buried in this house, and it was a house that was owned, or a woman that was connected to one of the three guys of the witnesses lived there. And eventually they went out there, the police and Kelly and Richard's family, they went out there, they got access to, and tore up the floor in the bathroom, and there was allegedly something there, and it got moved and everything else. It's up to you whether you want to believe whether Richard was actually buried there or not. Being that I think he went into the river, then of course I don't think it was in that house. But the point I'm trying to make here is that just because somebody gets buried in concrete doesn't mean the case is going to be unsolved for a long time. And also, I get the impression, did he plan this? Hard to say. Probably not. And I continue to believe that those disappearances that Unfound is featured, where we think foul play happened, I'm inclined to think a large majority of them are not planned either. Now, Tyler North, planned. But Zoe Campos, I don't believe that was planned. Her murder I don't think was planned. I don't think Austin Pivo's murder was planned. I don't think that Andrea Bowman's murder was planned. They happened, and people went to jail and everything, and that's great. But we just have to remember that I think a majority of these ones that we think are murders, not planned. So when we start thinking about, well, then the reason this person is missing, and certainly there are many guesses, although sometimes we get into it, sometimes we don't. We did get into it with Richard Hitchcock's, but there have been many where we haven't, talking about where we think that missing person could be. A lot of my guests do believe that their missing loved one is buried, under concrete in the backyard. And guess what? That was the case with Zoe Campos. And with Andrea Bowman, that was certainly true too. But it's not automatic that a disappearance is going to be, go unsolved forever just because a person is buried in somebody's backyard. I think the mistake that this guy made, and I don't know anything more about this story than any of you do, little too obvious. I think that I don't even know if he owns a house or anything. I don't know. But if he had killed her and put her on his own property and buried her there, maybe gets away with it. I don't know for how long he gets away with it. But he certainly, I don't think, gets caught in 5 days. I think the issue is that, he built a shed at a piece of property in Olympia the day after Norman was reported missing. That doesn't, to me, sound like it was his property. It sounds like it was somebody else's property. And I think that's a recipe for problems. Once again, bringing other people, other locations, you start creating things that you can't control. Was he due to build this shed for somebody else? I don't know. This is just something I think we need to remember, that this certainly could have been a disappearance that went on for a while, but it doesn't have to. I just want you to note how quickly this was all exposed. And, even though I'm inclined to believe that there are missing people that we've featured on Unfound that are on private property, on the private property of the best suspect. And we might think about some of the man said types of disappearances where husbands claim their wives ran off or whatever. Those are certainly ones that that I think have a high likelihood of the missing women being on those properties, and maybe we'll never know until those guys die and the yard, the property gets sold, and then the woman's family maybe can get access, kind of like what went on with Richard Hitchcock. They had to wait until that woman didn't live in that house anymore and they went out there. I think it's a great idea. I don't personally believe that he was out there, but the zeal with which they did that, fantastic. If you believe it, go find out. Go figure out a way to get on that piece of property. But I think this shows a lot of the times this doesn't go the way these killers plan. And there are ways to resolve these disappearances involving burials quickly if you have a good nose for it. And of course, as I've said, I just don't think that investigators or your average police officer has a nose for it. As I've said, I think that they are too willing to believe the men in these cases. Now, what also hurt this guy, it didn't help that he was on probation for child molestation. That certainly didn't help. On the other hand, what happens if Jeff Ziz is a fine, upstanding member of the community who doesn't even have a parking ticket? Then maybe him telling them, I don't know what happened to her, I couldn't tell you. Maybe he gets away with that story. Maybe. So these are all things to consider, because this easily in an alternate universe could have been something that lasted a while. All my point is, just because somebody gets buried in concrete doesn't mean it's going to be unsolved for a long time. If police are suspicious enough and ask the right questions and have a really good nose for that, these things can be solved really quickly. Certainly a lot easier than, if we believe that some guy went into a river. Certainly easier than that. What's everybody saying here? Ferry says, same town as missing mom, Nancy Moyer. I recognize that name for sure, Ferry. Tenino, Washington. All right, Nancy Moyer. I know that. Yeah, true. My sister, hello, 147. What's going on? Of course, I know you by your real name, Darlene, but we could call you 147 as well. I love vintage questions. Yeah, sister as well. Kathy's been featured on this podcast as well. The others. Oh, my other sister, Darlene. Oh, okay. Your other sister's Darlene. You're the other sister. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. Rockford, buried under concrete is often the go-to for the most perplexing cases. For example, Kyle Fleischman, Springfield 3, recent deep dive shout out, and others. Yeah. It is. And it is Rockford. Concrete comes up quite a bit. Certainly can believe that some of Unfound's disappearances, the victims have ended up that way. I can't put a good, could put on the percentage though. We know that happened to Zoe Campos, and of course the police went out there and originally completely missed it. They had to wait 5 years to correct their mistake. But I just don't. It's just one of those. It's like the wood chipper, and it's like being fed to hogs. Except I think that this does happen, but I think it's a little bit of a scapegoat too. It's one of those ones that happens, but not as much as people think. Whereas wood chippers and hogs, I don't think. I'm not saying it's never happened, But I certainly don't believe any of Unfound's disappearances that was the result. So, don't know. Your sister's darling. All right, 147. Thank you. Thank you for that. Good to see you tonight. So, buried in concrete, I'm going to guess, being that he was a sex predator, that he tried something with her, probably did end up raping her, killed her, had to get rid of her. That's probably what happened. I don't know how else to really think about this. Hello, Sarah. I'm often a little late as I'm still working when it starts. Yeah, you West Coast people maybe have a little rougher than the people on the East Coast. But Rockford, if you're working past 6 o'clock on the West Coast, man, you're working too hard. Okay, moving on. Need to get to this other story. Dead victim alive. A New York family is navigating an emotional journey after learning their loved one, whom officials declared dead last year, is actually alive and living out of state. Shanita Hopkins reached out to News Nation affiliate WROC with a very unusual situation. Her family had filed a missing persons report for her sister, Shanice Cruz, in July 2021. They were concerned because she left 2 children behind and cut off all communication. In April 2024, police told the family that the sister died 2 months prior in February in an empty lot in Rochester, New York. The cause of the death, according to the autopsy report, was a drug overdose with extremely high levels of cocaine in the body. Despite her sister being missing for 3 years at this point, Hopkins says cocaine wasn't something she had been involved with. Reading the autopsy was traumatic. It's one thing to hear it, you know what I'm saying? But then it's another thing to actually read it. And then her name is attached to it. So we're thinking this is how she died. And then we're trying to think, and somebody like lace her. It's so much that goes into it. Your mind just goes crazy, Hopkins said. Hopkins said no one was allowed to view the body due to how badly it was decomposed, which prompted a swift cremation. The family had a memorial service and funeral for Cruz last summer. Then in November 2024, Hopkins received a shocking text message from a person she did not know from Detroit, accompanied by a photo of her sister alive and well. It's a crazy planet we live on. Her first message is, "Ma'am, I'm concerned. Your sister is not dead. She just volunteered at my event today." My initial reaction was like, what the what? Hopkins remembered. What am I reading right now? Hopkins connected with police who told her to go to the Monroe County Medical Examiner's office, where they assured her dental records were a match. Hopkins was not convinced and showed the pictures and messages to personnel at the medical examiner's office. An investigation was soon underway. We went the next day. They wanted my youngest sister because her and Shanice has the same mom and dad. And then they wanted her son. So both of them went and they did a DNA test. And when the results came back, they said it wasn't a match, Hopkins said. This ultimately confirmed that the remains were not those of Cruz. Hopkins told WROC that her family has been experiencing a range of emotions. We dealt with the ashes and stuff. We put them in necklaces, and we mixed my mom with this stranger, Hopkins said. What a disaster. That's stuff that we will still have to relive, because at the end of the day, it happened. You can't take back the moments where the cop came and told us Shanice Cruz has been found dead outside like trash. You can't take away them initial feelings, like we can't get that back. We can't get the 7 months back. We can't get them tears back, she continued. In response to inquiries about the situation, a representative from Monroe County provided the following statement. Yeah, this person does not have an easy job. The Monroe County Office of the Medical Examiner uses industry standard scientific methods to identify remains of deceased individuals in a timely manner and make appropriate notifications to families. Due to restrictions on the disclosure of information contained in the records of the Office of the Medical Examiner, we are unable to comment on specific cases. You gotta hate it. Gotta hate it. Just come out and say you made a mistake. I realize there's going to be lawsuits. That's not going to stop anything. All right, you lawyering up and saying we use the standard Stein. No, you don't. That is not true. That is a lie. That is not going to help. Better to tell the truth in an apology than in a lie in an apology. And this isn't even an apology. Oh my goodness. Now, these are the types of things. I realize it's somewhat anecdotal, but this is the reason I have this attitude that I have to everything regarding disappearances. A lack of confidence in police, a lack of confidence in coroners, a lack of confidence in private investigators, a lack of confidence in a lot of different people regarding this. Hopkins and her family are now seeking legal representation. You don't say. I almost feel like they couldn't find out who this deceased person was and they wanted to close a missing persons case. That's almost how I feel. You're probably right. Hopkins said, noting that the medical examiner's office has since retrieved this person's ashes, which had been in a purple urn next to their mother. Oh my gosh. The medical examiner's office did say that, we can compensate you for everything you all spent on the memorial and the cremation and stuff. But my family was like, no, we need to get a lawyer. If it's for anything, it's really just for pain and suffering because this is crazy, Hopkins said. She's just still a missing person to us, but she's alive and well, Hopkins said. The family reached out to the Detroit Police Department to attempt to track down Kursed. Hopkins noted that his sister may not even know what they all truly believed her to be dead. When asked what she would say to her sister right now, Hopkins said, I love her. I'm still angry. I don't think I'm ever going to get over the anger, but I know how it feels. I'm sorry. I know how it feels to think that she was dead in that. I just want her to know that. I just want her to know that whatever we had going on, it doesn't even matter. Like, I love her. That's it. That's all I want her to know. WROC has also reached out to the Detroit Police Department to inquire about the status of the agency's attempts to locate Kursed. Monroe County did not address the inquiry as to the identity of the remains given to Hopkins and her family. Right. So this woman's still alive. She's in Michigan, I guess. And whoever this person was that they thought was her, still unidentified. That's on top of it. See what's everybody is saying here. Rockford says, you got that right. I'm too old for the schedule. Yeah, Lola. Yes, New York. Rockford is not in New York. Schenectady. That is awful. It is awful. 143, 147. Own up to it, Amy says. Sheesh. Yeah, agree. Mama love. Oh my, I can't believe it. Irresponsible and shameful, Amy says. 147 says, I would pass out if my sister showed up. Now, I'm sure you would. 147. I would pass out too. And I didn't even know your sister. So, first of all, we have to figure out, well, what's going on here? What is this woman's name again? Make sure I want Shanice Kursed. So she's there and then she's not there and they think she's dead, even though she's a mother and everything else. I think first thing we have to keep in mind here is it seems she left by choice. And this is one of those things where you might think, well, it might be, as so many people default to, sex trafficking. She must have left due to sex trafficking. She had this life. She had kids. She wouldn't leave her kids and everything else. People do leave their kids. It is only our own egos and pride that, wanting to think the best of human beings to say that people don't leave their kids. They do leave their kids. Men and women both. It's horrible, but it happens, and it happens a lot. Now, why Shanice in particular left her kids, I don't know, but being that it doesn't sound like she was sex trafficked because, as it says here, what was the She was volunteering at an event in Detroit that day. That doesn't sound like sex trafficking to me, where she's being controlled and everything else. She blew out of there for some reason. Maybe she didn't want to be a mother anymore. Because here's what I also think I know. Surely she had to know that her family was looking for her, and she did nothing. I don't care if it's a couple states away or how many hours by driving and or everything else. She knows where she used to be. She knows she left without telling anybody. She knows that she's not communicating with any of those people anymore. She had to know that they would think, man, this woman, our family member's missing. My sister's missing. What happened to her? She knew. She didn't care. And this is something that, families, as you can see with the, the Hopkins woman, having a hard time with this. Now, if you're going to ask me how many unfound disappearances do you think are like that? Well, we've covered a few that the people ended up being alive. Patrick Reed ended up being alive. Of course, Mary Jane Van Gilder. Of course, she left on her own. She left her husband. She left her kids. She went to Arkansas. She got in a relationship. Who knows if they were married or not, and had more kids, and then died of cancer in 1989. These things happen. And it doesn't have to have anything to do with control or sex trafficking or anything else. Sometimes people just make these decisions on their own. Let's just admit it. Maybe some of them just hate their families. Now, how many of Unfound's disappearances outstanding? You have to remember that about 10% of Unfound's disappearances have been solved. What about the 90% that are left? How many of those do I think that are people who walked off and are still living? Well, we know oh my goodness. I hate when this happens. Let me look. Let me look this one up. Just bear with me for a moment. What is his name? Trevor Nichols. We know he walked off. Remember, we just saw a picture of him from 2022. He's like homeless or something in San Diego. He was married, had a child, didn't want to be in the military anymore. He was supposed to get transferred to New York to Kansas or something. He said, the hell with that. Went missing. Now, I don't know how long he's been in California, but he's like among the homeless population or something. How many more are like that? Hard to say, but certainly there probably are few. Of the remaining 360 disappearances minus 35, that would be what? 325 of the 325 that are still unresolved in Unfound's catalog. I'm going to say at least 5 of them. Not a very high percentage. People who left by choice. And here's what I also think I know. People, both men and women, adults, leaving by choice happens a lot more than people who are, women mainly, who disappeared due to sex trafficking. It's not even close. So, I don't know. It's a bizarre story. I mean, of course, the kicker for this story is, of course, the government there in New York messing up and thinking that Shanice was found and she was dead and it was a cocaine overdose and everything else. That's just another couple layers on top of this. But what we should take away from this is that although it's rare, people do walk off and people do leave their lives, and it has nothing to do with force. They do it by choice. Now, how do you figure out which ones are which? Well, I will tell you, with Patrick Reed's, I didn't think that. But Trevor Nichols, I was pretty sure that happened. Now, I don't know if I could have predicted he was in San Diego or if he was still alive. But That's not surprising. The way that disappearance lined up, not surprising to me at all that he went off on his own by choice. And certainly with Mary Jane Van Gilder, didn't believe she was, I don't know if I could predicted what everything happened afterwards, but it was also a situation where, well, what are the odds she goes missing just as she's finishing up working in Ohio? This sounds like she didn't want to go back to West Virginia. And guess what? I was right. Try not to break my arm while patting myself on the back. If you really can really stay objective on these disappearances, if you like being right about things, you can be right a lot of the time. It's only when your brain starts getting really creative and seeing conspiracies all over the place that you run the risk of being wrong a lot. So even for the ones where we know those people ended up being alive, of course, Mary Jane Van Gilder's not alive anymore, but she was alive for quite a while, over 40 years after she went missing. I think they're somewhat not obvious, but there's certain qualities about them that we should note. Now, what was it about Trevor Nichols? Just go back and look at my notes to look at that. With Mary, like I said, I already stated with Mary Jane Van Gilder's. It was hard for me to understand. Wait a minute. Let's say she got murdered just as she was, saying she was quitting, working there. That seems like a little too unusual for me. And I certainly didn't believe she went back to West Virginia. And as soon as she got back there, nobody saw anything. She stepped into the house and her husband killed her. That seemed a little outrageous too. See, the other choice is she walked off. Now, could I have guessed that she met another guy? I guess I could have guessed that. But have kids and no. She had to have lived in fear her entire life until she died in 1989. She had to have. When we think about this types of situations. So, let's see what everybody's saying here. Can't believe impossible. Yeah. You're welcome. 147. I'm hoping all the listeners, support you out there. Yeah. They always say that about missing adults. Well, the thing is 147, it's a cliche. When the police say that, it's just them talking. They don't know what they're talking about. All right? They don't know. But when I say it, not to be too arrogant about it, but most of the time I do know what I'm talking about because I have a track record of being right. They just say it because they don't want to do anything about it. And they don't know anything about it. They don't know how to look at a disappearance and say, really scientifically, with a high percentage chance of being right, yeah, the person probably walked off and probably alive out there somewhere, and we can't do anything about that. Just because they're lazy. Whereas me, I'm actually trying to be right, as are, I think, Unfound's listeners. Hopefully, they're trying to be right too. Mama says, that's irresponsible, Ferry. I work for CPS. They leave their kids many, many times. 147. I really think that as well. She knew. Yeah, Shanice surely knew. Mama, that's tragic for a child, especially if they find out that their mother left, making the family believe she's dead. I know. Lola Catherine Fry did not just walk off. She certainly did not walk off. She didn't drive off either. Amy, yes, San Diego, agree, yes. So I wonder what's going to, do you think there's going to be a family reunion here? The issue is that we just don't know enough about this situation. What exactly was Shanice, what was going on in her life? What kind of life was she living in New York? How did she just randomly show up in Detroit? Was there a guy involved, or was she's a lesbian? Was there a woman involved? We don't know. My guess is that probably if we were to find out more, it would probably be like with Trevor Nichols and Mary Jane Van Gilder, where you hear the story and it's like, yep, I think I could have guessed that she walked off and didn't want everything to do with her family anymore. Probably. Rockford, I try to be objective, and where that leads me is a lot more walked off and started new life scenarios compared to what seems at first glance. Yeah. Why do the list, Rockford? I keep a spreadsheet of what I think happened in each case. And so when the time comes that a body is found or a person is found alive, whatever happens, I can go back and look and see if I got it right or not. And between the Friday podcast episodes and the Unfound Nows, I'm in the 90-some% range. I'd be getting an A in that class. Certainly. Whereas I think when you go to Web Sleuths and Reddit, there's people up at 3 a.m. in the morning and everything throwing all these theories around. Do they never notice that they don't get many of these cases right? Do they never notice that? I like being right because when you're right, you win. I like to win, trivia or whatever else. And, when you're right about things, whether it has to do with disappearances or anything that goes on in life, what does that mean? It means you are very based in reality. You know what's going on. You're paying attention. You are good at analyzing situations. To have a firm grasp of reality usually means you're living a pretty good life. And the amount of people, at least when it comes to disappearances, that don't mind being wrong all the time. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. If you want to get smarter, listen to this show. If you want to get dumber, Reddit is the ticket. Yeah, Reddit. Don't go to Reddit for disappearances. You want to go to Reddit for video games and things? Fine. Don't go to there for disappearances. Please do not do that. All right. So those are luckily I got to all the headline stuff tonight. So I still do have a few things that I can talk about for the next 20 minutes before we are done. D, are you still in here? Are we doing trivia on Thursday? Is that like a for sure thing? Taylor, are you still in here? And maybe you could tell me if we're still planning on Thursday, because some of you know at least that D, I know her as D. I started doing this trivia thing on Tuesdays, and it's kind of just getting up and running right now. Trying to find our sea legs with it and everything. But I think there's something there. And I've posted a link to it the last couple weeks, and we've done it on Tuesdays. But I told Dee that she might get some more people tuning in if she were to do it in the evening. I'm not saying she has to do it at 9 o'clock like this live show, but you might get some more people tuning in. Doing it at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe it's convenient for her, and I can't do anything about that. But so I was thinking behind the scenes, Dee and I were throwing around the idea, does she want to start doing it on, I thought you said Friday. I did not say Friday, Dee. I said Thursday. We could do Friday. I mean, I have no social life anyway, Dee. So if you want to do it on Friday night, that's fine by me. But I had said Thursday. I know I'm pretty sure I said Thursday. But we're going to try to attempt that again this week then, D. So be looking for that link. And I like it because D has really stumped me and the other people who tune in really well. And I've found out about some disappearances or murders that I had no idea existed, which is always interesting to me. And what I love is that it then generates good discussion about that particular case. So it's not just a Q&A type of thing, but there is some good discussion. And I start asking D questions, and and then she starts trying to find the answers and scrambling and everything. And I probably put too much pressure on you on that show when I start asking questions. But it generates good conversation, and of course, I'm hoping that it will cause people to go to Wikipedia or the Charlie Project or Web Sleuths or whatever, or just newspapers.com, or just Google and start Googling these cases and start looking them up and becoming interested in them. So it's just not like a game show. There's something I think you could take away from it and increase your knowledge about the crimes and incidents that are going on out there. And certainly, I mean, how many disappearances has D asked me about his trivia questions over the last 2 weeks? And there were quite a few that I had not heard of. But like I said, that's not embarrassing to me. I know there are people out there who think because I do this podcast, like I know that every disappearance, and I've actually had people who have, sent me, hey, Ed, you need to do the disappearance of John Smith. And I'm like, I never heard of that. And they're like, you never heard of that? Well, there's 100,000 unsolved disappearances in the United States. You don't actually expect me to know all of them. Now, I may know 1,000, just recognizing names and things like that. But, it's always funny when I say, no, I haven't heard of that one. And they're like surprised. I don't know. Now, if I didn't hear about Brian Schaefer, then that would be something different. But what is everybody saying? Right. Amy says, I'll check it out on the replay. Congratulations to D. Well, Thursday is not good for Mr. Fox. Well, you didn't tell me that, D. So Friday. All right, Friday. Great. Fine. Rockford, 3 p.m. Eastern. Some of us are in the middle of our 3 martini lunch. Love the idea, though. 3 martini lunch. Wow. Okay. Yeah. We want people to get tuned in. And so that's why I do this live show at 9 p.m. on Monday nights. If I were doing this at noon, I really don't know how many people would show up. Taylor, go to Ed's or Mr. Fox. There are others out there who know the case is right. Yeah. Taylor, well, I told you about Summerwell's aunt. We can start 5 or 6 your time. Let's do it at 60. We can do it 6 Eastern time on Friday. Nice way to start the weekend for everybody. All right, so all of you are hearing it here first. It's going to be Friday evening. Better make sure I put that on my calendar. Some other things that are going on. I have to admit something. I really don't Google myself. And I don't Google Unfound. I don't Google it or search at it to see what people are saying about the podcast. As I've said many, many times, I don't read reviews. I don't care. The podcast is going to get done no matter what people are saying about it. Whether it's all great, all 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews, the podcast gets done anyway. But where I'm going with this is that it now seems that over the past at least few years, Unfound the podcast has showed up in more news stories than I realized. Assistant Eric did a recent Google search in Google News or something like that. And I was a little surprised how many times Unfound's name came up in news articles for disappearances that have that the podcast has covered. And what I mean by that is that local media, maybe the best example is one, the disappearance, the last disappearance that was featured in 2024, and that was Keith Mann. To remind you, that's a disappearance from the 1990s where you remember Keith went out with a coworker of his and that guy's fiance, and they went 4-wheeling or something. And then Keith said he had to get home because he had to meet somebody at 12:15 a.m. and they dropped him off. And then the car that he was using from the car dealership was found right next to his parents' house. Does that all remember that now? Well, the local media in Texas found out that, I don't know, it wasn't from me. Maybe it was from his parents or something who were the guests. Maybe. They actually did an article on Keith's disappearance and then mentioned that Unfound the podcast was featuring Keith that week for that episode. And this is just one of many times in the last few years where local media has picked up on the fact that Unfound was covering a disappearance from their area. Who knew? Because this is interesting, because some years ago, I mean, it might have even going back to like COVID time. So that's like 5 years ago. Man, time is fun. I don't know where the time goes. 5 years ago for COVID. That's a mind blower. But I better, time's going by fast. I better start doing something with my life. Back sometime around then, I remember talking to Assistant Cherie about trying to reach local media when these episodes would be coming out. So if I'm featuring a disappearance in Allegan, Michigan, find out the local affiliate. Maybe Allegan doesn't have a radio station or TV station or something, but what's the nearest big market, and contact those media companies and say, hey, this disappearance in your area is going to be featured this Friday. Unsuccessful. Was not a productive use of our time. Email them. Nobody's ever get back to you. Me or her. So then I was surprised just recently when Eric had done a search. I don't even know why he did it. He didn't do it at my request because, like I said, that's not something that I even think about. But it came back with all these links to these articles where Unfound was mentioned in covering a particular disappearance. Who knew? So I'm glad I can't complain. What would be really neat, though, is that I would certainly like to get a Wikipedia page started for Unfound. I mean, it should have one. But and it's been a while. I know, once again, Cherie, I think, attempted to do it at one time. It kept getting rejected. I attempted to do it at one time, got rejected. But, we've been around for almost 9 years now. I think that we've certainly assisted at least a little bit in the solutions of a few cases. Unfound has been featured on more true crime TV stuff more than any other true crime podcast, I think, in the last 5 years, mainly because of Steve Pankey. But of course, there was that appearance I had on News Nation a few years ago. Did that. Man, I'd like to do more of that. So it's a noteworthy podcast. It's not the most popular podcast. Not Joe Rogan. Of course, it's not true crime, but you know what I mean. And I realize that there are going to be true crime podcasts that are always going to be more popular, more YouTube channels and everything else. But I think, on the other hand, that Unfound is having more of an impact than those others. And so it would be neat, I think, that, if these, like Missy Beaver's murder has its own Wikipedia page. Jennifer Kessie's disappearance has its own Wikipedia page. Brian Schaefer has his own Wikipedia page for his disappearance. I think I need to give that another shot regarding that. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. So we're going to do that Friday then, D. All right, 5 or 6 o'clock. You tell me whether it's going to be 5 or 6. Of course, 5 or 6 my time. D, I know you're an hour behind. Rockford, you get some nice shots on YouTube podcast too. I listen to very, very few, but Derek Levasseur. Sorry if I butchered that. The Justin Gaines episode. Yes, right. And Pat Brown, Tiffany Daniels. Right. I knew about this. Thank you for reminding me, Rockford. Get a sponsor for each show. Yeah, if I only had the time, 147. Only so many hours in a day. But thank you for the thought. So I just wanted to go that. So Unfound's making news, even though I didn't even know about it. Anything else that I did not get to tonight? Should say one more thing. As I think maybe most of you know, the YouTube comments are now turned on for most of the videos on the YouTube channel. And there may be a few that the comments are still turned off. That's not on purpose. It's just, sometimes I forget to turn comments on, and maybe there's a lot of like older videos. But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. And I think for the most part, people have been okay regarding comments. But once in a while, I do have to delete some because they're just, I don't want to put up with the crap. But just so you know, if you ramble, if you make allegations with no backup proof, if you're just parroting what obviously somebody else said, or if you're just getting on there and just saying I'm wrong, the guest is wrong without, anything like that, it's going to get deleted. Okay. If it's not constructive, it's deleted. If I voice my opinions sometimes, the guests have voiced their opinions, and then somebody just gets on there and just writes, well, you're all wrong. You don't know what you're talking about, and just leaves it at that. It's deleted. Okay. And, also what gets me is somebody will write something. It'll be like 2 sentences. And then he'll post another one, 2 sentences, then another one, 2 sentences, and it'll be like 10. Deleted. You sound crazy to me. You get deleted. So I do monitor the YouTube channel on my own, and there's certain things that are sure to get your comments deleted. Those are some of those. Don't do that stuff. All right, don't do that. All right, this Friday, we are going to the state of New Mexico for the disappearance of Tiffany Reed, a Native American girl, 16 years old. And this has so many echoes of the disappearance of Jason Jolkowski. And in fact, I would say, and Jason Jolkowski was the second episode of Unfound ever. It took 8.5 years for us to get back to another disappearance that's kind of like his. Tiffany Reed, 16 years old, Shiprock, New Mexico. She went missing on May 17th of 2004, so coming up on 21 years since. She got up for school that morning, and the walk to school was less than a half mile. But she was late, and her sister Deandra was there, and she's asked Deandra, hey, can you give me a ride to school? Even though it was a half mile, she was late for school. She didn't want to be any later than she had to. She asked her sister Deandra. Unfortunately, Deandra had just worked a night shift, and she goes, too tired. She's like, hey, it's a half mile. You can walk that. Tiffany went out the door, never seen again. A week later, some of her things that she would have had with her in walking to school that morning were found strewn along a highway in Arizona an hour away. And what's weird about that is it was in the same area generally where Dwayne Thomas allegedly went missing, that Red Mesa area that we talked about a couple weeks ago for Dwayne Thomas's disappearance. Of course, he disappeared later. What was it? 2011. Kind of in that same area of Arizona is where some of Tiffany's things were seen strewn along the road as if someone was going along in a car with the window open and just throwing things out the window. And was it a library card or something that was found with her name on it? Everything of hers was found except the backpack that she usually carried with her. Her purse was found, some other things strewn along the road, but the backpack was not. And what's also weird about this is it's not like in walking to school she had to walk along a main road. It was just a little residential street. All she had to go was directly south from where she lived through this neighborhood that she knew well to get to school. Never made it there. Because she was late, all the other kids in the neighborhood had already gone to school. She was not seen ever again. 16-year-old Tiffany Reed. Her sister, who was there that morning, who Tiffany asked for a ride, Deandra, is the guest. She did a fantastic job. We did that interview. When was it? On Friday, I think it was last week. Thursday or Friday. And so you will get to hear from the person who that we believe, the last person who saw Tiffany, her sister. She was there that morning when Tiffany left. So there you go. Tiffany Reed, Shiprock, New Mexico, May 17th, 2004. Her sister, Deandra, is the guest. But a lot of them, I think of Tom Brown. Yes. Oh, no. Sandra. Yep. Oh, no. Yeah. Tiffany Reed. Oh, no is right. So that's all I have for you. Great show tonight, if I may say so myself. Got through all the things in the headlines, so nobody's going to be ticked about that. And so I got to go. It's past 11 o'clock. I have to start winding down. We'll see what time my body winds down and will allow me to go to sleep tonight. We'll see, because I get all charged up about this show. Because when I started, I could barely keep my eyes open. Now I'm all wound up. So I hope you all have a great night. Hope you have a great week. And be looking for that episode on Friday at 2 p.m. Of course, for all of you who are Patreon and YouTube supporters, you get the episode the day before. So be looking for that. That's all I got. Keep your heads on swivels out there. Do not become victims. Do not end up on my podcast. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. Good night.